Hello again, Echo Cluster. I'm Commander Koski, and I previously made a film about how you can fight as cloaking races and how you can fight against cloaking races. That was a video about tactics, what kind of tactics you and tricks and tips and tricks what you can use to defeat your enemies in battle and on the battlefield. Or as I talked about in that movie, you don't actually fight their main force, but everything around it. And but then uh, later on, I was thinking about making another movie about how I use the production build queue system of the game as the bird and in general. And I was about to make that video later, but then in the activity feed, Robo Bob asked a question for bird players. So, if we are good at sniping of ships and generally being a pain in the backside, how do you convert this inclination into a win? I, of course, hurried there to mention that I made this YouTube video, but then ISOT replied, before you try special tricks with different races, make sure you've learned the basics of the game, especially early economy. Much easier to find tactics to win with 15 plus Darkwings at turn 30. And ISOT is definitely, especially absolutely right. And when I read his message, I understood that I didn't actually answer to the original message by RoboBob, as his questions, do you expand aggressively and try to compensate for weak economy with volume of planets, or do you play it quiet, build alliances and slowly maneuver into a dominant position? These are questions about strategy, and my previous video was mainly about tactics and tactical tricks. There was some strategy, but very little. So I believe when I'm doing now this new video, it should be more about strategy and also how you put that in practice. How you make that grand plan, that overall stance or behavior against your enemies. How you design that and how you put that in action. And a lot of what I now know, a very important person for that is ISOT, because my gameplay and skills were greatly developed because 1 year ago ISOT gave his groundbreaking presentation about early economics at the planets.nu 2017 in Nuuksio, Finland. And it's definitely true, ISOT says. It doesn't matter what race you play, you must have great early economy, and with that you get the big fleet, as much firepower as possible, and then you have a better situation against the other players. So when Robobop says to expand aggressively and try to compensate for weak economy, well, you definitely have some serious problems with economy as the bird, especially in classic planets, which I play a lot and which this video is about. But the thing is that you should try to get strong economy also for the birds. That has some specialties, but the basics work in the similar manner. In this video, and this is actually the first part of a series of videos about this game, I will do these in a shorter videos, and then I will make a video list to my YouTube channel about these videos. But I will use as an example this battle for Bazal sector, which is actually still going on, but I'm pretty sure I'm about to win it. About 10 turns to victory countdown I'd count. I've got 164 planets, and I believe that in 10 to 15 turns I'm up to 200 planets, and then I'm able to win this game. As you can see from this chart, I've made some pretty nice improvement in my planet count, and I believe that will continue. And if you look at the data of the game, I got planets, star bases, warships, military over 1 million as the bird. So I've done something right in this game, and I feel so myself, and I try to explain what I've done and why in these videos. And this has been very fun game, and let's see how it proceeds. But let's put the resolution zooming back to 100 and look at the actual game. So let's go to the turn 1 of this game. What I do first is, when I open a new game, I press the Q key, and then I will see the connections between planets. That's the connections mean that if you have transport drives and you can move 81 light years every turn, these connections show from which planet to another you can move in one turn. And this is very important because this actually gives some kind of shape to the map. And one thing is that the less turns you use to do stuff, the more efficient you are able to build up your fleet and fight against your enemies. Also, if you can move in one turn from one planet to another, you can stay hidden, and in tactical and combat situations they become important. So it's always important and wise to control whole clusters in a game. So now, after I've pressed the Q key and I've located where my home starware base is, I try to figure out where my enemies are, and that I can do when I choose from tools the hyper jump circle. My computer started to load something. I hope it doesn't mess up this video. But my neighbors, as in classic planets, we are all located in circle. They are somewhere on my right and down left, as I'm at the bottom corner. So they can't be inside this circle. And now immediately I noticed something extremely interesting. This big cluster here is inside this hyperjump circle, so there can't be any enemy homeworlds inside it, so it's empty. My next neighbor to the homeworld, there should be three connecting planets. Like in my case, I have 3 connecting planets here. So I try to guess which planets, where my neighbors are. One neighbor is here, I presume, and one neighbor is here, I presume. Actually, and therefore I've colored their planets in red already. I made a small mistake in my this is not true. The homeworld wasn't actually here, but it was here on this planet, and this planet wasn't actually here, but it was here. So, but it didn't matter in the end. But now, in this video, let's go through the first few turns. And now we go back to ISO T. ISOT's teachings about economics, they are based on one very important structural thing in planets. It's the ship limit. It doesn't matter if you play a classic game or new Q game, there's the ship limit, and the more you've got ships, powerful firepower ships before the ship limit, as the ship limit strikes, the more better chances you have against your enemies in the game. So this game clearly has a beginning phase and the middle phase. The end phase is not as clear as the first, but the difference between the beginning phase of the game and the middle phase, when we hit the ship limit, that's the time when we jump from one phase of the game to another. And if you manage to build very nice fleet, big fleet with good firepower before the ship limit, you've got better chances in the game. So you should always try to do that. And in order to do that, as ISOT teaches, you need to build up all the nearby planets, and you must build mines first. Mines first in order to get maximal amount of minerals as soon as possible, so you can build up big ships as soon as possible, also star bases, and you need to locate the natives and bring a lot of clans there in order to tax them, and no growth taxing. You need maximum taxing to the closest planets. ISOT says you have to whip them, you have to punish your natives and your home world also in order to get the maximum money and maximum minerals. So the idea is that because of the ship limit, you need to kind of really exploit the beginning planets all around here in order to get the maximum minerals and maximum money out of it, to get the maximum firepower. And the thing about how good of a logistical strategic player you are depends in how few ship moves you can optimize all these logistics, that how few ships moves you can do to get the maximum result. So I really encourage everybody to watch ISOT's presentation from last year and learn from that, learn from the heart, because if you have a big fleet, even diplomacy is easier because you've got some firepower to negotiate stuff to back your things. Another thing about this game is that I use this game as a kind of a practice game. I played a very successful rebel game earlier with a high difficulty modifier, and I managed to do a very decent fleet, I think the biggest in that sector, and because of that big fleet also I believe I won that sector. But I had some difficulties. When I concentrated to build big fleets, I forgot some tactical things, and for example building good fuel logistics was much more difficult back then. So I tried to practice this in these games to get back my tactical imagination and get the good fuel logistics and everything. But now, after this short lecture about ISOT's early economics, let's go to the bird game at hand. And bird also, like every other race, needs a lot of minerals, a lot of every mineral, especially molybdenum, because they need good engines and good beams. And there's something about the bird as a race that really needs money. The birds need massive amounts of money, and that is something that is because of their ship list and their abilities and how you play the game as the birds. And that really you have got to really pay attention to that in your game style, especially in the early game, in order to build the early economy. The reasons why they need massive amounts of money are, for example, first of all, the ship list. The most important and most useful ships are the Resolute class advanced cloaker and the Darkwing class advanced cloaker. Both of them have very high hull tech, so you need a lot of money in order to raise the hull tech up to 10. Okay, carriers also have tech 10, but you can build a carrier with small technology engines and tow them around, and they can still be very powerful weapons of death and destruction. But with the birds, you need to move cloaked everywhere, and in order to do that, you can't tow them around because then they would be visible. So you need very powerful tech engines to all your cloakers, which means that even your Swift Heart, the really small pesky cloakers, need powerful engines, and that costs money, a lot of money. Then, because you are flying around cloaked, you need to be in control of the enemy minefields. The enemy tries to lay minefields, you want to countermine them and sweep them. So you need big beam tech also. Then, in order to fight anywhere, your most best weapon are the torpedoes, and not only does torpedo tech raising that is costly, the actually tubes when you build the ship, they cost a lot of money. For example, if you try to build a Mark 8 photon torpedo tubes to a Darkwing, that's awfully lot of mega credits. So in order to build those good cloaking ships, you need a lot of money, and that means you need to get all the natives from 1 light year away and 2 light year away. No, 1 turn away, so 81 light year away, but also 2 turns away, which is 162 light years away, and 3 turns away, and even 4 turns away. So you need to really get to the natives all around your starting locations. You need to put a lot of money there, and to get a lot of money from there, so you need to haul a lot of clans there, so you can start to tax them with -10 happiness each turn from the beginning, so you get as much money as you can. So you need to get a lot of clans there and then build some kind of Swift Hearts or something like that, so you can go and collect that tax money and bring it back home. So first you need those minerals, and you need also those money, and you need more, you need both quickly. So that's the basics of early economy for the bird. So what I did in this game, however, is really unique for me. First of all, the thing is that the birds need to stay hidden. They can't, because they are very fragile. Of course, pretty much every race in the beginning of the game, because they need a lot of money in order to build decent ships, to get some kind of advantage over the other players. They need their home world a lot, because there's already some tech levels raised. and they also need their core planets nearby, because they will be most probably the planets where the levels has been raised. So if your neighbors find out that you are the bird and you are where your homeworld is, they might come for a headshot. They might come colonial Virgos or then some columns and everything, and they try to aim directly to your homeworld and destroy it, and it's very likely that you can't build enough defenses in time to counter that. And if you lose that beginning economy, core of your beginning economy, you are in deep trouble. So you need to stay hidden in the beginning of the game. And so here was this conundrum I was having in this game. First of all, this is a huge threat and possibility. There's a big cluster of planets right next to me, so because inside 162 light years there must be some good natives. There are many planets there that fall inside two turns from my homeworld. So these 4 planets might have excellent resources, excellent natives, but if I move there, my neighbors might see my freighters flying through the open space. So what I do is that if I think that I have a neighbor here, I do a large deep space freighter as my first build. I fill it up with clans, and I move here, and I move it into this cluster. And the reason why I do this is that I take a risk that the enemy can't see me moving into that cluster, because from here to the nearmost planet I expect my enemies here. So if he moves his medium deep space freighter here, he can't see my large deep space freighter because it's over 300 light years away and the ship scan rate is 300 light years. So unless my enemy has built is a race that can build hyper jump ships and jumps as a first builds a ship like that and jumps here somewhere, he can't see me going in there with my large deep space freight. And this is the risk, but it's not very likely that my enemies will see me. I take a risk and as my first build a large deep space freighter, fill it with clans and move it here. Because if there are some very important native planets there, I get them and I get the money out of them. And that was the reason why I made this very early, a bit risky move and broke the rule of not going into the open space by doing that. But it proved to be a very valuable move, because this planet where I went was a strategically extremely important one. There were bovinoids, not many, but still there were bovinoids, but most of all there was molybdenum underneath the planet core. 11,858 kilotons of molybdenum with 48% digging mining rate. So it's very important planet for me, because I need molybdenum. Everybody needs molybdenum, especially the birds need it, because they need those Tech 10 engines, which take a lot of molybdenum, but they also need those good beams, which take molybdenum. So it was very important for me to get here and build some mines there, so I'm able to get the molybdenum for the late game. And it proved to be extremely critically important, because later on I found out that the robot lies here, and he was my first enemy, and I really needed those heavy phasers to sweep those minefields, and I got the molybdenum for those from here, and from a Merlin that you need quite soon for the molybdenum in the game. But before I end this video of these first turns and the early economy of the bird, let's check what I did with my medium deep space fracture and what I did on the planet. What I did on the planet is I started to punish my homeworld with high taxes, -10 happiness. So the reason why you need a homeworld is, of course, with the bird you build good ships there, but you also needed to get the beginning money for the first few turns before you get that max tax out native money from some nearby, and you need to haul those clans out from there. But there's over 2 million clans, so you don't need to worry about the growth of the clans there, because over 2 million is enough. You don't need to grow them that much, and you don't need this planet in the later turns to make money, because the native planets are the ones that make money. Of course you need money even there, because when you are really pushing to the limits of creating that big fleet, you need every mega credit in order to achieve that. But I built the large deep space fracture and the medium deep space fracture. I put there 100 clans, 100 supplies, and 400 mega credits. I moved to the nearest planet. It proved to be a very nice planet for minerals, but even if it would be a bad planet with minerals and no natives, I would still drop all those clans there, all those supplies there, and build 100 factories. 100 factories? No, sorry, not factories. Build 100 mines, of course. 100 mines there, so I start to get these minerals right away. So in just a few turns I will have over 100 molybdenum, over 150 titanium, and about 100 uranium. So I can start building nicer ships quite soon with the help of these, and then at the later turns I will use the more strategically important planets such as this to get the big amounts of minerals for the later turns. But in order to start building those nice ships, you need even the bad rocks. So this was the first just a few turns of my bird game here, and next time we'll move forward in the next video about what happens next, more about strategy. But this video was about the early economics, very early economics and the logic behind them. But that's the whole cornerstone you build your empire on. So thank you, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time in my new video.